Welcome back to another episode of the Good Morning Minute podcast. I'm your host, Angelina Mojica, certified family life educator, life coach, and the founder of Empower Her Steps. This season, we're stepping into a new series called Rooted, Restoration of the Fruit of the Spirit, a conversation about identity, healing, and inner growth. While the fruit of the Spirit comes from a faith-based framework, the heart of this season is something we all can relate to. The qualities that shape who we are: love, joy, peace, kindness, patience, gentleness, and self-control, and how life experience either grows or challenges those qualities. We're not here to label people right, wrong, good, or bad. We are here to explore what's beneath the surface, what shaped us, what stretched us, and what helped us grow. Today, I'm honored to welcome Isha. She's a former corporate professional turned fertility mindset guide who supports women navigating the emotional and physical journey of trying to conceive after facing years of unexplained infertility and job loss. Isha explored the mind-body connection, nervous system safety, and subconscious belief patterns. Isha, I want to say welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Angelina, for having me. It's my pleasure.
Yes. So, before we get started into the conversation, I would like for you just to kind of share a little bit about who you are and what this current season in life looks like for you now.
So, um, I spent majority of my life, chasing accomplishments, chasing titles, really hustling hard. That was all me. But about 2 years ago, there came a point in my life where I was forced to slow down. Um, I had unexpectedly lost my job of over a decade, and it really made me go deeper into like discovering who I really was beneath everything, because my identity was tied solely to my job and what I was doing for work. So for me, being in that spot where after everyone left home in the morning and me staying back, and it's like, okay, you know, is this my life now? Like there was a lot of questioning and a lot of confrontational self-awareness. Um, anyway, I think that journey really led me to question a lot of things because, I was realizing I was of the mindset of like why is this happening to me? And then it took me a lot of, you know, acceptance and self-reflection to come to a point where it was like, it's not happening to me, it's happening for me. So it really was, I think, a big turning point where I'm like, okay, how can I make this work for myself? Because I would apply to hundreds of jobs on a regular basis, only to hear a no or not, hear nothing at all. So after facing that many rejections, I remember it's like just one day I had had enough, and it was like, end of the day, and I had this voice in my head. It was like, do you really think that you are that bad at what you do that nobody wants to hire you? Your purpose is much greater. And that voice was just like a very reassuring voice that reminded me, this is really happening for a reason. I am really here for something bigger. And what I realized was, up until then, the life that I had created on the surface, it looked perfect. I had a job, I have a house, I have a family, a child. On paper, everything looked perfect, but internally, I knew like there would be days where I would question, like, is that it? Like, there has to be more to life than just, daily grind from 9 to 5. Anyway,
Mhm.
so I think that those moments really slowed me down and helped me really connect to who I was behind everything. And what I realized was, the life that I was living was a version that I may not have realized if I really wanted for myself. It was more a version that the society or the culture I was raised in wanted for me. And then I'm like, okay, well, if this is not the life I want, going back to a 9 to 5, then what kind of life do I want? Like, what really speaks to me? What really sparks, lights up a fire in me? And the message was very clear that I love motivating women to their true potential. And I have always enjoyed telling stories about my life and, inspiring people. So I was like, you know what? I think, and then during one of my meditations, I had this really strong vision come to me where I was on a stage. At that point, I was like, who is this person on the stage? And then I'm like, okay, if this is my vision, then I guess there's some version of me, in there on a stage with a mic talking to a huge crowd. And in that moment, I was like, okay, I guess this is the breadcrumb I was looking for. So
Mhm.
in this season, I am really looking to use the lessons from my life to really uplift women and awaken them to their power. Because I feel like what I realized through my own journey was I was living in an imagined life based on what other people thought was good for me. But now I'm in the season where I'm like, I want to create a life that works for me and my family. And my career doesn't have to come first and everything else second. I can have a career as well as, support my family and raise my kids. So I think um, for me, it's all about helping women believe in their power, in their potential, and not give it away so easily. Um, yeah, I think I kind of answered that question.
Yeah, no, and I'm so enthralled with your story because some things that stood out were are reflective of my own journey in self-discovery and awareness as well. So you mentioned how life doesn't happen to you, but it happens for you, and that's such a huge concept to understand, and it really does open up a different worldview and a different perspective because when we're thinking from the mindset of life is happening to me, we're thinking from a mindset of lack. We're thinking from a mindset of I'm the victim. And we hold no accountability, right? We hold no accountability for the outcomes because it's not my fault. This is just life and this is what's happening to me and I have no control over it. I'm a victim, right? And when I was able in my own story to grasp the turnaround, like that shift of perspective where it's not, no, it's truly happening for you. It was it was so freeing. Like I was able to take a deep breath and finally fill my lungs with air because I was able to understand that in each moment that I experienced hardship and even the positive stuff, in each moment that I experienced in life, it all contributed to who I was becoming. And
Mhm.
and that was the moment that my eyes were open and I was able to like say, oh my gosh, I have been operating on the autopilot of
Yeah.
myself, and I could have steered this ship in any direction, but I refused to take that power. I refused to take that control. But when you can realize that it's empowering, and I love that you want to help women, that aligns so much with the things that I'm doing in life because I feel like with women, we've kind of taken a back seat historically, right? You mentioned like culture, you mentioned genetics and so many factors that this imagined life for you that you just kind of play into. And I want to break that down a little bit too, because what that's telling me is like the moment we are conceived, the moment we're conceived, like from that point, so many things are telling us who we are, what we are. in all these things, right? Genetics, culture, all of these things. And we're born into a family, a family of some sort, whatever that looks like, that is going to give us this image of life based on
Mhm.
the person that is birthing us, the family that we're being introduced to. And so I like that you're mentioning these things because it's so powerful when you can truly understand that concept.
Yeah, I think I remember like you were saying, we are shaping our reality every moment of the day by the thoughts that we're thinking and the emotions that we are feeling, and based on the actions we're taking. So for me, I was done playing the victim. I was done feeling sorry for myself because no one saw the potential in me to give me a job. And I was like, I had this conversation with myself, which I have a lot. It's like, uh, so what if people cannot see your potential? It's very hard for people to really get to know you in a 20-minute, 30-minute interview or through a piece of paper. Like, what does a piece of paper have to tell anyone about who I am as a person? But I'm
Mhm.
like, I know what I'm capable of. I don't need any proof, for that. I'm fairly convinced I can do a lot of things that these people may not be able to see, or I may not be able to make them see, in that 30-minute time slot. And I
Mhm.
was like, you know what? I think the proof is there, and I'm done waiting for someone to notice that potential in me. I'm
Mhm.
done waiting for someone to see my worth. Like, I accept myself the way I am. And I think that for me was like, okay, I'm calling the shots now. I am not going to rest my future on whether or not someone sees my potential and decides to give me a job. I'm going to take things in my own hand and create a life that I want for myself, for my family.
Mhm.
And that really, I think, changed the trajectory of, yeah, I'm not a victim anymore. I am deciding in this moment, and I'm choosing to feel differently, think differently, which is more in alignment with where I'm going.
Mhm.
And that small shift was huge. I think that was a big moment for me where I was like, I choose myself. I don't want to wait for someone to choose me. Um, yeah, I think that was like pivotal in my journey.
And in you sharing that, there's a point because because you're like, at this point, I'm having this inner dialogue. I'm having this inner dialogue with myself, and I'm going, I'm no longer going to be this victim. Like, I no longer want these outcomes because I keep seeing the repetition of no, right? But a lot of that is your inner dialogue and your inner beliefs about who you think you are, right? I don't think that I don't think that I'm of value to, I don't bring any value to an agency. I don't think that I'm worthy of this job. And so you receive the no's because you seek it out
Yeah,
unconsciously. You seek it out because
yeah,
you're like,
yeah,
oh my gosh, this I'm insecure. I don't feel like I can do this. So then when those no's hit, they hit and and it's like that inner dialogue. You see, I told myself that I wasn't good for this job. They weren't going to pick me, blah, 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 right? And you just go on affirming that negative self-belief. And I think it's so important for people to understand that when you are able to truly be aware that you can pilot your own self, and it's not just about behavior because the behaviors stem from your belief. Like, it's a belief, it's a feeling, it's a thought, it's an action, right? And then it's a result. So you have to go even deeper than just, I'm going to change the behavior, because at that point you're not really going into the root of the problem. You're still just kind of you're kind of pruning off the dead leaves at that point, right? You're just kind
yeah,
of addressing the outside of it, but you have to go deeper. So at
right.
what point did you in your story go deeper and understand that there's something much, much more rooted in yourself that needs some attention or needs some healing or whatever that was, at what point
Yeah.
did it hit you in that manner?
I think it was like 6 to 8 months into my job search, and nothing had really materialized by then. I was still like really deep into that victim mode. And
Mhm.
then one day I had this epiphany where it's like, I cannot wait to have a job to feel good about my life. It doesn't like, because then that would be a long wait and possibly an endless wait. Like, I need to feel good about myself before, I go on these interviews or I do anything. Like, I cannot wait for my environment to control, or I shouldn't be relying on my environment to control how I feel about myself. And I think that was like, okay, something needs to change and it has to start from me. And I was like, you know what? I think I've tried to figure it all out on my own all these months, and I'm
Mhm.
only spiraling down. So I'm
Mhm.
like, I admitted, like, I accepted that it's okay for me to ask for help, which I did. So I started working with a life coach, and with her help, she really helped me go layers and layers and layers deep into why I was feeling the way I was feeling. And a lot of that had to do with this little girl version of me who had spent her whole life wanting to be accepted, wanting to be loved, wanting to be appreciated. And it was that 6-year-old version of me that was seeking attention. Because, from a very young age, unbeknownst to us, we want to be chosen. We want our parents to choose us. We apply for schools, we want to be selected in the best possible school, and the same cycle repeats itself, be it sports, be it, a job opportunity, because we somehow start associating being chosen as, getting the attention that you deserve and getting the love that you deserve. And I
Mhm.
think that was the root of it all. Like, once she really helped me connect the dots, just like you were saying earlier, I just felt this heavy burden lift off my chest,
Mhm.
like that I had been carrying pretty much all my life.
Yeah.
And now it was hurting me more than benefiting me. So it was a lot of like, underwired beliefs that had become the foundation of my life all that while. And now they weren't serving me. So I had to like really change them. And the only
Mhm.
way to change them is recognize that, first of all, they exist. And once you recognize and admit that,
Yeah.
these are the things that are causing you to suffer, they stop losing power over you. You start recognizing those patterns and you start choosing differently. And that's exactly what I did. So after I remember, like, I had just started working with my life coach. Maybe in like first couple sessions, I saw this big change in the way in the whole outlook, like,
Mhm.
towards life. I was happier. I was more appreciative. So what if I didn't have a job? There were so many things in my life that I was overlooking because I was so hung up on this one thing.
Mhm.
I, got into the habit of doing my gratitude journal every day. It was hard to begin with, but once I got into the habit of doing it, and I did it for like so many months. And I remember it was like, as much as I struggled to find three things I was grateful for when I first started, I remember once I got into the habit, it was like, I can't stop. There's so many good things in my life that I'm appreciative of. The air that I'm breathing, having a roof on my head, the food, that keeps me alive. It was just like the list kept growing and growing and growing. I'm like, okay, I need to start journaling about everything because it's like that would be my bedtime before bed ritual. And I remember like I would, because I was going to bed with so much gratitude, I would wake up feeling happier. Like I would wake up feeling excited about going about my day. Nothing in my environment had changed, right? My circumstances were still pretty much the same, but I think it was the way I started to look at things and appreciate more of what I had. And I remember reading somewhere, which had like really struck me was, if you can't appreciate what you really have, what makes you think you'll appreciate when you have more of what you want?
Mm.
And that was like, whoa, like that's so true. Like, yeah, even if I get a job, if I am miserable, I'm going to be miserable in that job too. Right. And if I'm appreciative, I will be of the mindset of like being appreciative of this job opportunity.
Mhm.
So I think for me, just acknowledging that I needed help, acknowledging that it wasn't a sign of weakness that I was asking for help,
Yeah.
but like something needed to change, and that change had to start from me. I
Mhm.
think um, that really moved the needle. And it wasn't just like, my confidence in myself. I saw changes in the way like my relationship with my husband improved. I was a better mom to my son, just like all the things, because ultimately I was the common denominator in all these things, right? Once
Yeah.
I started feeling differently about myself, it just started reflecting in all the areas of my life.
Yeah. No, I love that, Isha, because I've been there too, where in self-reflection, I'm going, okay, these are different situations, but the commonality in every situation is me.
Hmm.
And that's a hard truth to swallow because you're telling yourself like it's starting with you. Like the issue is starting with you. And when I saw that for myself, much like your own journey, it was like, okay, well, at least now I can start working through it. And what I love about your story is you're like, I'm working with this coach. We're like peeling back the onion layer by layer, and at the core of it, it's this little girl that has received a message that was an external message, and whether it was intentional or not,
Yeah.
the message hit something that said, I'm not worthy.
Mm.
And as you started to reprogram that belief and change it and started addressing like, no, I am worthy. And I don't, and you mentioned in your story too, like, I don't have to wait to live the life that I want, for that job. I can start living it now, and
Yeah.
eventually the job will happen. Because
Right.
I can't say, "Oh, let me hold up my life until I get this job so then I can be happy." Because then again, we're waiting on those external things, but you're still not addressing the little girl in the room. You're not addressing the little girl that's there going, "But I'm not worthy, but I'm not worthy." So I love that you're saying that because that's step number one, the awareness of
Yeah.
it. And then you mentioned a couple of things in your healing process, but you mentioned then I needed to connect. I needed to connect. I needed to ask for help. And I know, like, because I've been there, done that. Like, I know sometimes it's hard because because that little girl is probably going to be like, well, no, nobody's going to help you. And so to connect and be vulnerable and say, no, I really do need help. I need to know how to fix this because if I don't, I'm just going to continue to repeat the same patterns. That's where generational cycles begin. Just a
Yeah.
repetition of things. So you connected, you found a coach, you found a community, and you're starting to reset that program so that it becomes something that's going to be healing to you, something that's going to help you thrive. And then you mentioned gratitude. You mentioned I'm journaling gratitude, and I love this. I love this about your story because when we talk about fruit of the spirits, we're talking about joy, we're talking about peace, we're talking about patience, we're talking about self-control, gentleness, kindness. Like we're talking about these things, but until you can get to a place where you start looking at things from a lens of gratitude, you're not going to be able to start cultivating that soil because that's what that gratitude is doing. It's changing the dirt, it's giving the sunlight, it's giving the water, the nourishment that those roots need to start budding up the fruit. And and until you can do that, until you can start changing your perspective from it's happening to me to it's happening for me, and I'm thankful for whatever it is. I'm thankful for this. And you start seeing the abundance in your life, right? You start seeing the abundance. that's when you can sleep peacefully at night without the
Yeah.
anxiety, without the stress. That's when you can wake up, like you said, I would wake up and I was happy, I was joyful, even though your circumstances didn't change, even though there was, I mean, you stepped into situations, you stepped into hardships, like that's going to happen because life, what do the kids say? Life is lifing, like it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're in the spirit of joy where it's not going to detour you away from your goals and from your perspective, the perspective that you're trying to put into your life. I love that about you. Because and then you said, and then not only did I start changing from within, but my relationships started to change.
Yeah.
And I love that
Yeah.
because it's so true. Your
Yeah,
interaction.
and I was never like my goal of working with a coach was just like myself. Like I need to change. I need to stop feeling like a victim. I need to stop this endless cycle of feeling sorry for myself. I never knew how big of an impact it would carry for basically my entire household, you know. My husband, like he would joke with me, he's like, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. Like, and I think, I mean, we had a happy marriage or so we thought, but at the same time, I think we had somehow resigned to the fact that after these many years of marriage, the spark disappears, and that's just normal. But then I realized, like, we normalized it, you know, and like just because every marriage may look a certain way doesn't mean my marriage has to look that way. And for me to like cultivate that spark back that we had when we had first met, in back in college, it was like, what would that feel like? Like, what is it missing? How can I bring that back?
Mm.
And like literally it revitalized our marriage where I couldn't wait for my husband to come back home from work. And like I would look forward to seeing him. And I was like, wow, I really missed that. Like, because, this was the behavior that, when you first start dating and you're like, you can't wait to see each other. And then you get married and life happens and you just settle for, okay, I guess this is normal. He's there, I'm there, nobody's going anywhere. A lot of, taking for granted. But I think for us, like me especially, I think because of the work I was doing on myself, I made sure to like acknowledge my husband for everything that he did for me, for all his love. Because I'm like, if he weren't present in my life would look very different and probably not as fun and exciting as it looks today. So I think, and there's actual science behind, when you start cultivating gratitude, your brain starts to look different very quickly.
Mhm.
Your brain starts to form brand new connections, and ultimately our brains are nothing but a filtering device. So it's like you install a new filter which is called the gratitude filter, and now it's just filtering all these things that you
Mhm.
feel gratitude for. And I think for me that meant like I felt gratitude for my husband, for my son, for it was just like, oh, I have a new life almost. Like it was there, but now my eyes are wide open to accept it and
Mhm.
acknowledge it and feel thankful for it.
I love that. So Isha, a question for you that I have is if what would you want someone listening today who may be struggling the same way you were to hear from you?
I think for me, I had to really, this journey has been about undoing the conditioning, undoing the the things that led me to that point, but weren't going to come with me in the next phase of my life.
Mhm.
Admitting that the change had to start from me and seeking help. So just because, someone's going through something doesn't mean you're broken. I think that's life, and that's what makes life exciting. And I think if I hadn't gone through, what I went through, I wouldn't be having this conversation today. Like, if you think about it, if my life was absolutely perfect, I had
Mhm.
no reason to appear on a podcast because no one would relate to me, right? The
Right.
only reason I can show up like this and talk to you is because I have had all these things that at one point I was like, I thought they were setbacks, but now I look at them and I call them setups, right? you
Yeah.
know i i chose to I chose those things as opportunities to like really show what we are capable of. And I think for me, my message, even though it's like for women in their conception journey and how we're told to prioritize starting a family over our careers, and in that hustle we basically lose ourselves and start to blame ourselves.
Mm.
We keep piling a lot of shame and guilt. I want to break that cycle.
Mm.
And I want women to really, you know, um, cultivate that trust in themselves, cultivate that deep knowing, and trusting our intuition more than our logic. Because I think as women, that's our superpower that we've kind of forgotten or lost touch with. So my journey, I think, has been like through my own awakening, creating that enormous trust in the divine power, whatever you believe in, and ultimately like forming that connection with the divine. And I think that's what I really want to gift
Mm.
the
I
women in
love
my
it.
community.
I love that. And I know even in your story, you also mentioned a slowdown. Like you had to slow down enough to look at your inner self. So to look at the roots of those problems and give space. Like sometimes people think, well, if I slow down, then I'm never going to grab the momentum to restart, right? But a slowdown and a pause can be so beneficial to that healing journey and just that healing that you're stepping into, that it will allow enough space for healthier fruit to grow. Like it will allow for those new ideas to formulate, for the new visions to come to your mind so that you can start planning your life over again and you can start hitting those goals, and then the momentum starts back up and you start striding, and there's less fall downs and less struggles, because again your spirit is operating out of joy, peace, and kindness and gentleness. Like it's a big shift when you can really understand it. Well, Isha, before we wrap up, I want to leave listeners with something they can carry with them. So if you would, what is a truth, a thought, or a word of encouragement that you would leave those listening to help them stay more grounded and rooted in who they are becoming?
I just want to say one thing
Sure.
to women who are listening in particular. It's that you are not broken
Hmm.
and you are worthy of everything that your heart desires. If you have a desire that you may be not listening to or silencing, but it keeps coming back, it was planted in your heart for a reason, because there's a version of you that already has that desire in physical form. So it might just be, that future version kind of gently nudging you to take that first step, honor that desire because it's meant for you. Um, and I think not getting caught in the cycle of rushing, because that desire is there, it's there for a reason, and trusting that in divine time it will bear fruit, and you will be able to eat the fruit, enjoy the fruit. And that timeline might look very, very different than what you may perceive or what you may have thought, but that doesn't mean it's not meant for you.
Hmm. Such good words, good encouragement for sure. I like the message of not being broken. Well, before we close, Isha, where can people connect with you to learn more about your work?
My Instagram is the fertility voice with periods after the infertility. That's how I would, love people to approach me for now. There are a lot of exciting things coming up. I am actually writing a book, which will be coming out in a couple months. So definitely, stay tuned for that. I will be, talking about my story in much detail. Um, and yeah, a lot of exciting things, coming up since I'm just like starting on this journey. But 2026, the year of the horse. So I am really, really excited and looking forward to all the transformations that are gonna come along the journey.
Mm. Well, thank you, Isha, for sharing your story and your growth with us. What I love about conversations like this is that it's a reminder about transformation. That transformation isn't about perfection, it's about awareness, healing, and intention. When we tend to the root, the fruit begins to change naturally. So, to those of you that are listening out there, take a moment to reflect. Which inner quality feels hardest right now? And what part of your story might be asking for more care? For me, my faith is where healing begins. And if you're curious about that journey, you're always welcome here. There's no pressure, no judgment, just space to grow. So until next time, friends, stay rooted, stay real, and stay growing. I'm your host, Angelina Mojica, sending you much love, much peace, many blessings.